Nandita, welcome back to the Ready Side Goal Show. Today I have a very exciting guest, and as an anxious athlete, I'm even more excited to introduce Aashna, who's a sports and performance psychologist on our show today.
Hello.
So today I just want to talk to you about what sports psychology is, what it entails to do what you do, and just generally sports and mental health and where we are today and how far we've come. And yeah, I mean, it's something that I feel like I talk about a lot because it is the reason that I left my sport. So I'm like very unabashedly like, yeah, I had mental health problems and that's why I quit. But I know that that's not the case for a lot of athletes. And yeah, that's why I think it's important to have more conversations about it. And I think just for me, I'm very interested in talking to you in like how my journey went and how that's like impacting me still today, I feel like. But yeah, so I guess just to begin with, what is a sports psychologist?
So, first of all, thank you for having me on here. I'm so excited to finally be here and talk about it. Mental health and sports is something I can talk about all day. So I'm super excited. A sport and performance psychologist essentially is someone who works with, or I will speak for myself, I work with athletes and high performers from the grassroots to the elite level around their mental performance and their mental game, which could be anything from focus and concentration to performance anxiety. A lot of it is rehabbing during injury, getting back to sport post-injury, anything related to the mental side of the game, which inevitably does impact the physical as well.
Yeah. So I guess like just diving straight into sports and mental health, because you work so closely with it that I think your insight is going to be so interesting. But something that my dad said to me, like, has always stuck with me is that at like the elite level, after a certain point, physical skill and physical talent, like you kind of reach a ceiling in the sense that if you're a top player, like everyone is going to be like world class. But what makes the difference between world class players is mental strength. What do you like? Do you think that is true? And what does it take, I guess, mentally to get to that level?
It's a good question. So the way I put it is kind of similar, right? That not only at the top, which can be top 30, top 50, arguably top 100, physically, skill-wise, everyone's kind of the same. But even at an under 14, under 19 level, everyone around you has had similar amount of training and skill set.
Yeah.
So often what we find and what research says sets the athlete apart is the mental side and their ability to handle high pressure situations or bounce back from mistakes. So definitely the mental part of the game makes a massive impact, and especially when it comes to the finer details, often that is the difference between a win and a loss at that level.
And the way that an athlete trains, like their whole life is training, and you know, you put so much emphasis on the physical training, is there like a mental training almost that you can also do? And is that something that, I mean, I'm sure elite athletes are incorporating it into their schedules. I just don't know what that looks like. Could you give us an insight into that?
Yeah. So the same way, and again, it works differently for different sports.
Of course, yeah.
But you periodize a plan. You have off-season and an on-season plan. Some sports don't really have an off-season, and so you make mini periodizations within the month or within 2 months, and you have, like, let's say, a month before a major tournament, you have really intense workload, high intensity practice, and then a few weeks before you kind of deload. Similarly with the mental training, which is exactly what it is, right? Is how I explain it is the same way you train footwork or skill or speed or strength, you train confidence, you train mentality and composure and focus and things like that. There is a whole plan behind it. It's not off a whim. And maybe I can take you through the process, super. I guess the summary of it would be the intake, which is the first time I meet with an athlete, which is getting to know them, kind of understanding their sport history, where they feel like their strengths and their weaknesses are. And then from there is when me with the athlete, it's a very collaborative process, because like I say, I might be the expert on mental performance, but you are the expert on you. And so we collaborate and figure out, what would help your performance the best. We then integrate that stuff into practice, and then more, I guess, closer to competition practice and then competition. Never am I going in and saying, hey, we're going to do visualization in your next big competition without you having tried it in practice first. So it's super planned and thought out, and there's a whole, the same way your trainer would train you in the gym. There's a whole process.
And you're talking about visualization. I've heard some of the best athletes, that's what they do, visualization. And how effective do you think things like visualization and manifestation, which can sound like a lot of hoo-ha and internet rubbish that the young people are doing, how effective can that actually be if done right? And I guess, how do you do that right?
Well, that would be a whole other conversation. And
as briefly as you could.
But you said visualization and manifestation, and I would like to clarify that those are different things. Where manifestation is almost like I'm seeing myself on the podium, or I'm seeing myself with this outcome, whereas visualization is more the how, how am I getting there? And so, to get a little bit scientific, I guess, when you physically do something versus when you mentally think about doing it, the neurons that are firing are almost the same. And so visualization is essentially just strengthening the neural pathways for that action.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so another word for visualization is mental rehearsal, where you're just putting in the reps mentally, so that it's coming to you more naturally. Where I think the most famous example over the years has become Michael Phelps and the broken goggles, where it was a combination of physical and mental, where in practice, allegedly his coach used to break his goggles on purpose and used to train like that. But then also he would, when he would do his visualization, would put himself in that situation where, okay, my goggles have broken, this is what I would do. And then it happened, and he broke his record and won gold, and all of, the rest is history. But that's what visualization is mental rehearsal. So it's never enough to just do it. Obviously, you have to put the physical work in as well. But muscle memory is that.
And this was going to be one of my later questions, but you think that things, mental things also can have muscle memory?
What do you mean?
So I was going to come to this later, but so I obviously I quit my sport because I would experience a lot of anxiety, and it became just a matter of, I just fell out of love with it, and it was something that would cause me, I feel more pain than something that I enjoyed. And there was such I had such specific feelings before a race or on race day, and it was my stomach would be in knots and sweaty palms, and for the longest time I would be told, but that's the adrenaline that you need to fuel your race, this is good, if you are not stressed, you don't care, all these things, which yes, to a certain degree I do agree, but I think there's a very fine line. And I think just after a point, all of those feelings and the pressure, it just became unbearable. And long story short, I ended up leaving the sport. But like I was telling you earlier, I just started playing rugby. And a couple weeks ago, we played our first ever tournament. And I truly had no stakes in this tournament. Okay, it was the first tournament I was ever playing. It was a social tournament, so like whether we won or not, it didn't matter. It didn't count to any ranking or anything like that. It was kind of the first time the club was putting up a team like this. I was also playing alongside some of the country's best players, so I was likely not even gonna be in the starting lineup. They'll put me in for some minutes so that I get experience. So long story short, there were no stakes for me in this.
Yeah.
But leading up to the tournament and on the tournament days, like I experienced like all those same emotions again. And I remember like when I used to compete, like when I used to do athletics, so much of it was so much of the anxiety was that also because it's an individual sport and you're taking all that pressure on yourself, and it's just so lonely. And then when this was happening to me again, I was so confused. I was like, it's a team sport, you know. It also doesn't matter for anything. And I feel like every sport I've tried, this has always happened to me. When I was playing football, I was like, okay, yeah, you know, I just quit athletics. It's like probably like, you know, close or whatever time-wise. But I just didn't understand, and I felt so frustrated because I was like, I cannot have this feeling and this like situation like ruin one other thing that is giving me so much joy in my life right now. And I was talking to my friends about it, and some of them were like, you know, maybe this is just like part of your process and you have to just accept it and like it'll go away eventually. And maybe it is, but like it kind of almost felt like muscle memory for my body to feel that way, even when I didn't actually have any stakes in what was happening.
Yeah,
I guess.
Yeah.
So that's the context of my question.
Makes sense. And I guess maybe the way I would put it is, and again, I don't fully know your story, so
yeah,
this is just in general, that is why sport is so amazing, right? That it can teach you so much about life. And so the way you learn to deal with any kind of stress will be similar. And if you have if you're thinking about something in a certain way, you'll think about anything that puts you in a similar situation that way. I don't know if that made sense. That was a bit like convoluted. Essentially, yes, possibly, that it brought up a lot of the same emotions, or maybe that is just the way you learned to prep for a sporting event, right? And so I don't know if I want to say muscle memory, but maybe the connection was part of that association. But I think a bigger thing is like how you learn to cope with stressors in life. And those things translate. Like, I'll bring this back to you, but a lot of times people ask me, like I work with a 9-year-old or a 10-year-old or a 13-year-old, and a lot of people are like, oh, like, isn't that too young? But the thing is, the older we get, we're still super neuroplastic, but we become more rigid and set in our ways, right? And so actually, the younger the better that you kind of figure out how you want to cope with stressors. Because a big thing you hear in sport is like, oh, just don't stress, or like just don't get anxious, or just, you know, like don't be nervous about it.
You're like, yeah, thanks, I'm cured.
Right? Or the alternative is athletes will come to me and say, I want to learn how to not be nervous, or I want to learn how to not be anxious. And my answer is always, I can't do that. You're not going to not be nervous because you care. And if you didn't care, you wouldn't be here. You know? So a lot of it is about accepting the nerves, and I always say, like, we have to be best friends with pressure, and then learning what to do after it. And okay, I'll ask you this: what happens when you're excited? What happens to you in your body when you're excited?
Yeah, I guess I get jittery and restless. Much less notable feelings, I guess, similar to anxiousness. But I note them much less. Like, I'm like, yeah, I'm excited, I can't sleep. But in like I can't wait for the next day, and I can't sleep.
Physically, you're jittery, your heart's beating fast, you can't sleep. when you're anxious or nervous, you're jittery, you have butterflies in your stomach, you can't sleep.
Yeah.
The physical manifestation of both those things are the same. It's the interpretation that we put behind it, which is not to say like, oh, it's just a figment of your, it's more like that's what my job is how can we focus more on the excitement and the prep and the process so that automatically you're giving the nerves or the anxiety less attention. Because right now, if I tell you, don't think of a pink elephant, you're thinking of a pink elephant. But if I say, don't think of a pink elephant, think of a blue flamingo, the pink elephant hasn't gone, but you also have this other option. And so that's what my job is to give you these other options so that I'm not saying don't do something. The brain doesn't hear that don't. It's like, here's a bunch of other options. And so we'll spend so much time focusing on the things that are in my control and that are helping me than this thought that isn't helping me. So there's less time for it.
So I guess my thought is that a lot of times in sport, that initial, the initial anxiety or mental health problem or whatever isn't even identified or is like brushed by or less, like in sport, it's much easier to explain a physical injury than, anxiety or whatever it is. So if that initial blue elephant isn't being identified, how do you introduce the pink flamingo, I guess?
Okay, this is super important to clarify. And that's why I love the space that I work in, because I get to do a lot of my job is not just practicing sports psych, but like I was saying earlier, is also raising awareness about what it is. Is healthcare in general is very reactive.
Okay.
But it should and is better when it's proactive, right? So for starters, nothing has to be wrong for you to come to me.
Right.
And there doesn't have to be a pink elephant.
Of course.
Right? Where either I take my medicines after I have fever or I just have my vitamins and work out and yada so that I don't get sick in the first place. So a lot of it is, this is where I am. Clinical psych is, I'm not being able to function. This is normal, right? Clinical psych is, I'm not being able to function at normal. I'm not being able to get out of bed or things like that, which you leave the professionals to kind of diagnose. And so help me be at normal. Where I work is like, I'm at normal. How can I be better?
Right.
Right? And so that's what the intake process is all about, where we kind of figure out like, hey, my focus is good, but it can be better. This is good, but it can be better. And then through the process of that, we might find out things that are like, and again, I guess that's just part of my job is I don't expect everyone to be so self-aware that they know exactly like what impediments they have or what is stopping their performance from growing. I think that's why we have, physios and nutritionists and psychologists to help you. So maybe you don't have to know what the pink elephant is. Maybe it doesn't have to be there at all. I think having conversations and just if you want to improve your performance, then
I mean, I definitely agree. Like, I don't think that the pink elephant has to be there. But I guess my question was more like, in a country like India, where we have such a large and varied population, where for a lot of the population, mental health is still very new and is still taboo or just not even something that they're aware of, that being proactive isn't an option and the damage is already done. But like, do you see that improving more? Like, do you see it improving more at a grassroots level, or are we still stuck?
Yes, and there is a long way to go.
Of course.
Right? Things like this, like what you are doing to whatever audience it reaches, what staff is doing at the ground level, what big companies are doing by coming in and having these initiatives to raise awareness, development programs. It's really awesome to see people giving it more and more attention.
Yeah.
Even elite athletes are talking about mental health more. So there's a long way to go, but anything helps. And we were talking about this earlier as well, but this, like our generation, the younger generation, they're so awesome about being so honest and open-minded and just ruthless in a way about if I need it, I need it. That's what's making me better. And in a way, I think already we're far ahead in asking for help and putting in the work. At the same time, it's very much an access thing and an education thing, which in this country is, not always possible. So I think it's very nuanced, and
Of course.
you do what you can to the extent that you can, with the awareness that not everyone can afford a sports psychologist, let alone a coach, So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when I was training, I think I didn't even know of a singular sports psychologist in the city, which is crazy because I was training like amongst elite level runners, and like none of us even thought that was a thing that we needed. And like I think I will always wonder if when I was training, if I had someone like you in my life, like would I have continued? Where would I be now? And it will always, that thought will always haunt me, I think.